The Brookfield Zoo Chicago finally did it. For the first time in over 40 years, they gave their apes outdoor access. Primate attractions have been a staple in Brookfield's history since opening day. You could find most of them in the 1933 Primate House, which still stands to this day, but is now dedicated to the swamp. Right behind it, the Monkey or Baboon Island that displayed animals for nearly 80 years was eventually demolished and replaced with a nature plaza. And behind that is Tropic World, a massive warehouse that puts you in the canopy with tropical creatures from South America, Asia, and Africa. It opened in phases between 1982 and 84 as the world's largest indoor zoo exhibit. So clearly it was very revolutionary for its time. But rather than have this get renovated or replaced, someone at the zoo must have thought it was so revolutionary, Tropic World stayed virtually the same all these years, and went from being famous to infamous for its unnatural features and not giving a single animal outdoor access, not even its 3 apes. Well, like I said, it took over 40 years, but Brookfield finally changed that with the tropical forests, a $66 million project and the centerpiece to the zoo's next century master plan. Sitting right alongside Tropic World, this new complex finally delivers what visitors and critics have long been waiting for, to see the zoo's primates go from a concrete jungle to something a little more natural. In this episode, you'll get the usual walkthrough and see every detail of the 4 brand new habitats, but we'll also cover the few changes that were made to Tropic World, compare and contrast how these animals used to live versus how they live now. I'll give you a perspective that most visitors will never get to see, and at the end, you'll actually get to hear my thoughts on this new project. Before we do that though, I'm gonna need all of you to help me out and identify this species that will appear in the next episode. The entrance is still facing the east side of the zoo, but in order to get to Tropic World, you have to go through this new archway and take a sharp left at the building. Before the renovation, you had to wind through a small forest trail filled with signage at every turn that hinted at everything that you would see inside. I get why this is no longer here, but as a graphics nerd, I'm definitely gonna miss walking through this. The biggest and best change to Tropic World so far was definitely this, and something I wish they did years ago to make the building a little more immersive. Before you actually get to any exhibit, you have to walk on a slightly elevated boardwalk that surrounds you with some sort of forest ambiance. I first came here in 2012, and this room I think has been renovated 2 times since. The first couple times that I saw it, the atmosphere was more family friendly and more cartoonish. But now it actually feels more like the deepest, darkest part of a jungle. Other than that, I didn't really notice any differences in the South America section. The main part of Asia was the same outside of the fact that the fruit doves were replaced with kingfishers, and the main part of Africa was no different. But the old gorilla pit has been completely blocked off, and we're all waiting anxiously to see what will happen to this area. If you have any guesses, any speculation, or any leaks of what it might be, please comment below. Tropic World shoots you out of the south side of the building facing the formal pool, which I'll talk about in another episode. If you walk to your right, or the map's left, Tropical Forests is just right around the corner, but to keep that crowd controlled for now, this is the exit only, and hopefully it's temporary. So today we're going to have to literally walk a quarter of a mile to the entrance, but this is the perfect opportunity to talk about what lies behind the new exhibit. Brookfield has a lot of empty space, and even with tropical forests, this area still has a lot of leftover empty space. So what better way to fill in some of the gaps than to fill it with a garden? But not just any garden, a 600-foot-long pollinator garden, full of black-eyed Susans, milkweeds, and other native plants. So why were those chosen to be next to a tropical exhibit? Well, they actually provide nectar and pollen for bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, and in turn those animals transfer pollen to other flowers so the plants can fertilize. So the garden isn't just here to look pretty, but it's also an educational reminder that some of the smallest native species are crucial to a healthy ecosystem. Now that we've literally come full circle to the entrance, we'll go right this time to the new stuff. The first thing that you'll notice is the long overhead tunnel that connects the warehouse to our actual first stop. The species and exhibit order of tropical forests reflects Tropic World, which means that this is the South American forest. South America Tropic World is the most diverse section. There's anteaters, sloths, tamarins, squirrel monkeys, and more. South America outside only displays Mexican spider monkeys for now. So the question is, are they going to be joined by their friends? And word on the forest is at the very least the other medium-sized monkeys might make it out here someday. But I haven't heard any news recently. Now, I actually never had a problem with South America in here. And yeah, I know it's not very green, at least not naturally, but I loved how these trees kept the primates off the ground, and they could scale the entire enclosure front and back, side to side, by staying up in the canopy. Their new enclosure is about 4,800 square feet. It's a lot more natural looking and filled with so many climbing opportunities, it would be hard for a person to walk through it. But it was hard to pay attention to the habitat's details because the monkeys were so active. I don't think I've ever seen monkeys act so wild until today. So, starting out, this really could not have been a better first impression. Brookfield goers by now should have noticed that there is no longer a 20-foot drop-off between you and the animals. Much like the South American forest, the other exhibits can get you face-to-face with the primates. Well, I wish that were true in the moments where I was around the orangutan forest, a more natural reflection of Tropic World's Asia realm, which is home to otters, white-cheeked gibbons, and orangutans. Oh, and also, again, the kingfishers. This is where things started to look a little rough in Tropic World. I didn't really mind the gibbon situation because, again, they can live their entire lives in the clouds. The orangutans, though, didn't have it so good. You would think they'd be dying to get outside the first chance that they get. I actually delayed filming tropical forests because I heard that the orangutans and gibbons were not comfortable going outside just yet. Couple of weeks later, I heard that an orangutan did manage to make their way out here. So I came up here after a month of getting that news, and I thought I would be seeing some orange apes, but I had to see both Asian apes inside like I always did. So I can at least say that I got to have some fun reading the signage, studying the details of the exhibit, and faking the crowd out by accidentally making them think that I was filming something living in here. If it wasn't the orangutans that desperately needed a new home, then it was the gorillas. I believe this is for their bachelor group. There wasn't a lot of action going on here, and the two gorillas were hiding very well, which to me was a testament to how improved their living conditions are now, because they couldn't get any privacy in Tropic World, and like the others, didn't have access to natural substrate. The exhibit itself also has heated rocks. One of the trees has compartments where keepers can place food for the gorillas to find. There are 4 viewing shelters, including one in this tree stump. I believe this doubles as a keeper enrichment wall, where you can also see how you measure up to the primates of tropical forests. And at the last view, there's a fallen tree that takes the apes up to their transfer chutes that goes above the crowd and above almost the entire length of this plaza area. That gives the area a nice, let's just say an architectural flair, which, by the way, reminds me to go back and give a shout out to the graphics team. You can pretend to be an orangutan, identify every gorilla. There's a cell phone recycling station, because your cell phones, your smartwatches and such are made from a material called coltan. Typically, mining coltan also destroys gorilla habitats in the wild, and by donating your cell phone, you can help by reducing the need for mining. back near the plaza, there's also a gorilla statue commissioned for the Snares to Wares initiative in Uganda that turns dangerous wire snares that are used for illegal poaching into animal sculptures. This program was created to fight poaching. It provides local people with training and income, and of course supports conservation. The last bit of the trail shares walls with a fourth new habitat and a second gorilla home. It's almost the exact same size as the other one and looks the same at first glance. But this offers a very different experience. If the zoo's troops don't rotate, then this is where you'll find their family group of adults and youngsters. So naturally, one of them is bound to be on the move. And fortunately, they all were near the end of the day. They also weren't as shy and were kind enough to give the crowd what they wanted. This exhibit also has a log that fell towards the window, allowing the apes to access not just their own transfer tunnels, but also a ledge that puts them what I'm guessing is around 15 feet off the ground and takes them to another lucky set of spectators. Special spectators that have VIP access to the upper level. And fortunately, today you are all my VIPs, and later you'll be able to see what goes on up there. Now, as soon as all of this opened, I immediately got the question, where would I put Brookfield's complex on my list of top gorilla habitats? I'll tell you during the review part of this video, but I will say their Tropic World space was dead last for not giving them outdoor access alone. Getting on the subject of indoor access, some of you have probably already asked in your head, what will happen to the animals when the zoo looks like this? Presumably, the spider monkeys will go back to South America inside. The Asian apes will also, as we saw, stay where they are, but the old gorilla pit isn't available anymore. So when you exit Tropic World, you don't actually have to walk a quarter of a mile to see your first tropical forest animals. All you have to do is go right around the corner to the Gorilla Conservation Center, the first completed expansion of this new project. And my first impression was, I like how you can really see the stark contrast of this new modern facility compared to the old one that it's connected to. When you get inside, you'll notice that there are two dead-ended hallways on your right and your left. But no matter which way you go, you're always looking at the same exhibit. I guess I misspoke earlier. The zoo built 5 new public habitats, not 4. This is the gorilla's public winter home. But since I clearly visited when it wasn't winter, the zoo still found a way to make good use of the space year-round. When the apes aren't here, some of the Angolan colobus monkeys and red-tailed guenons from Tropic World will keep everything nice and warm for the gorillas. And as you may have noticed, it's multiple stories. Like I implied before, the upper floor is reserved for special event guests only. And I was lucky enough to run into some wonderful Zoo Tours viewers who were so kind enough to give me their tropical forest pin and access to the second floor. And it was a lot more sophisticated than I thought it would be. I love how it lets in all this natural light, a better view of the formal pool, and it kind of felt like a hotel lobby. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just think it's funny how the clean look is paired with African forest animals that aren't very well known for their cleanliness. Up here, you get a third perspective of the day room. The windows across the event space that we saw earlier from below don't just bring you to the gorilla's ledge, but the event space's biggest selling point, I think, are the panoramic views of the 2 gorilla exhibits. Just imagine you're at a reception, you're partying with gorillas, but you also want to get some fresh air. Well, you can go outside on the terrace and get some of the same views, but if you're lucky, you also might see the apes make a transfer right under the deck. And that was the end of our tour, which means now it's also time for all of you to hear what I think of tropical forests, a highly anticipated project, but also a very polarizing one I've noticed so far. I'll cover the negatives, then the positives, both from a zoo critic's perspective, and I'll try my best to do it from the animals' perspectives. So when the renderings were first released, everyone was beyond excited that some of the zoo's animals pretty soon would no longer be in some of the worst living conditions in the country. I don't remember anyone having any notes, no criticisms, they just wanted to see this built ASAP. My first impression, and I think everyone else's first impression, that it was going to be way more immersive. It wouldn't have any minimal features, it would just be as natural looking as they possibly could have made it. But honestly, as of right now, I feel more immersed in Tropic World than I did in tropical forests. At least inside it does feel and sound like a jungle, and it kind of looks like one at times. This new one feels just a little too polished and modern in all the wrong ways. I read several articles that describe this as not your average walkthrough, and it feels like a rainforest, not a zoo. Well, whoever said that was right. It doesn't really feel like you're at a zoo. It felt more like an outlet mall. It's just too open, and like I said, the trail is just a little too clean. Okay, so I do always say you should let new exhibits take time to grow its vegetation. And the habitats themselves are already far more lush than what they were on opening day. But I don't really see it looking too much greener outside of the habitats. And I'm not referring to the Pollinator garden. I actually love that. I could forgive this flaw if the retainer walls weren't so visible. I don't understand this design choice. I get it. From the main viewing perspectives, the habitats are sloped upwards towards the back so the animals are visible even if they're far away. But I would trade having this perspective if it also meant not seeing all this concrete. I mean, if you were planning on letting the crowd see the animals from the garden side, then wouldn't it have been smart to have the habitat's landscape slope down from the center on all sides so that the walls would be in the ground and invisible so it doesn't look so unnatural? Plus, I also heard this Pollinator garden doubles as a rain garden, so if the exhibits were sloped down towards these native plants, then that's a win-win. Maybe the idea was to have these trees hide them one day, but it's going to be years before that happens. Looking at this positively, the animals have outdoor access, okay, we covered that, but outside of that, the enclosures are fairly well sized, especially for the monkeys. And even though they're not the prettiest, there's plenty of opportunities to climb throughout the entire place, although the orangutans could use a few more vines, or like 20. Alright, so if we're looking at this from an animal's perspective, they don't care that there's a lot of unnatural elements outside of their world. I'm sure they're happy to be outside, they're happy to be able to literally touch grass, and they have plenty to keep them busy. And even with its flaws, you can't take all of that away from the tropical forests. Oh yeah, and to answer the question, where would I rank this gorilla complex against all of the other ones that I've seen? Right now, I think it would just sit outside of my top 10 at the 11th spot, which means you would have to switch over from the top 10 gorilla exhibits I've seen to the ranking video of all the gorilla exhibits I've seen. Next on Zoo Tours, for the third walkthrough episode in a row, we're going to explore another new and highly anticipated exhibit, except this one actually closed for over 15 years. And is back by popular demand. But not before we go over my beginner's guide to the Brookfield Zoo next week and a breakdown of their $500 million master plan the week after that. So, as always, stay tuned for our next adventure, stay wild, and thank you all for watching Zoo Tours.